Good morning. Today we're doing MCA Day 4, which was reviewing Chapter 6. First we're going to look at solving and graphing inequalities. Remember, the one rule we need to know for inequalities is that if you multiply or divide by a negative number, you have to flip your inequality symbol. So let's take a look at this first one. It says n divided by 2. So the opposite of dividing by 2 is going to be multiplying by 2 on both sides. We didn't divide by a negative or multiply by a negative, so leave your symbol the same direction. 2 divided by 2 is just 1, so we have 1n, or just n. And 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. However, in order to graph this on a short number line, we need the letter on the left. So we got to flip-flop these around. That means our symbol also changes. So when we put this on the number line, you can put negative 6. If you want to put a couple other numbers on the number line, you can. Also, another quick reminder, if you have less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, those are closed circles or filled in. If you don't have the equal to, those are open circles. So this one does have it, so it's a closed circle. And then like an L, less than negative 6 is the more negative numbers, negative 7 to the left. Alright, let's try the next one. We want t all by itself, so the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So those are multiplied. We need to divide by negative 13, divide by negative 13. There we multiplied by a negative, so we need to flip our symbol. So that leaves us with t is less than a negative, and 13 goes into 26 2 times. Our letter's already on the left, so we can graph this. Remember, negatives, positive numbers are to the right of the negatives, so we would go down towards 0, and then more negatives would be negative 3, negative 4, negative 5. This one's an open circle because there's no equal to. And like an L, less than is to the left. Alright, now we have a multi-step or a two-step inequality. We want to get the letter y all by itself. Remember, get rid of adding and subtracting first. We're doing the order of operations backwards. So I'm going to subtract 5 on both sides. So I have negative 6y is less than or equal to. Add these up, same sign, add and keep. That gives us a negative 21. And then last, the opposite of multiplying by 6 is dividing by negative 6. Again, we're multiplying or dividing by a negative, so we have to flip our symbol. So we have y is now greater than or equal to, 2 negatives make a positive. We have 21 over 6. Now, if you want to change that to a decimal, we can. 21 divided by 6 gives me 3.5. If you wanted to, you could also divide by 3 to simplify. Still going to be an improper fraction, so if you want to put it as a decimal, that's fine for this case. We have 3.5, closed circle because of the equal to, pointing to the right, greater than would be towards 4 or 5. Continue to solve the inequality and graph the solution. We have letters on both sides. We need to move them all over to the same side. Since I want the letter on the left to end, I'm going to move these ones over to the other side. Subtract 4m. So those eliminate. 8 minus 4 is 4, so 4m. Minus 7 is less than 5. And then always get rid of addition and subtraction. I'm going to add 7. So those eliminate, and I have 4m is less than 5 plus 7 is 12. And then last, opposite of multiply by 4 is divide by 4. So we have m is less than 3. So on our number line, we're going to put a 3. If you want to put other numbers, you can, 2, 3, 4. This one's also an open circle because there's no equal to. And like an L, less than 3 would be towards 2. Alright, same thing on this next one. We have letters on both sides. So we want them all to end up on the same side. So I'm going to move this one over to this side. If you wanted to move the more negative one to keep everything positive, that's fine. You'll just have to rewrite at the end. So I'm going to add 5D. So this side eliminates. We have this 10 out front. Negative 11 plus 5, there's still more negatives. 11 take away 5, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. We have 6D is greater than a negative 4. Now be careful, we need to move this 10. It's not negative, the negative goes with the 6. This is a positive 10, so we're going to subtract 10. So we have negative 6D is greater than a negative 14. And then last, the opposite of multiplying is divide. Whenever you multiply or divide by a negative, remember we have to flip our inequality. So 2 negatives make a positive. If we want, we can divide by 2 to simplify, and that gives us 7 over 3. Not the nicest number. If you want to change it, it would be 2 1/3 or 2.3 repeating. Either way, you can graph it on your number line. 2.3. It would be an open circle. There's no line underneath. And like an L, less than would be to the left, towards 2 or 1. Alright, next we have a couple inequalities that we need to determine if it's even possible to solve them. If we get an answer like x is greater than or less than a number, that's just a solution. You can graph it on your number line. If you get a solution where the x's or the y's go away or whatever letter, and you get it true, like 5 is greater than 2, your answer will be all real numbers. Like any number you plug in for x is going to work. 5 is always going to be greater than 2. What if we get something like 2 is greater than 5? Well, that's false. So your answer is no solution. You can't solve it. So let's take a look here. This side is just 14x plus 5. This side we need to distribute. 7 times 2x is 14x. 7 times negative 3 is negative 21. So we have x's on both sides. So I'm going to move these ones over to the other side because we want the letter on the left. So I'm going to subtract 14x. So these ones eliminate. But guess what? These ones also eliminate. Please do not write 0x. There's no x's left. If I have 14 of something and I take 14 away, I have nothing. So don't even write it. We don't write nothing, right? So we have 5 is less than negative 21. Now, is this true or is this false? Is 5 less than a negative number? Think about it in terms of something tangible, like apples. If you have 5 apples, is that less than owing someone 21 apples? Well, no. 5 is positive. It's greater. If you're still not sure, look at your number line. Negative 21 would be over here. 5 would be over here. Is 5 less, like an L, less than 21? No. So this is false. So your answer would be no solution. We can't solve this equation. Let's try the next one. Let's distribute on this side. 6 times 2 is 12, so 12x. 6 times negative 1 is negative 6. So we have 12x minus 1 over here. Again, we want all the x's on the same side, so I'm going to subtract 12x. So those eliminate. Same thing here. 12 minus 12 is nothing. They're gone. We have negative 1 is greater than negative 6. Again, think about a number line. If this is 0, here's negative 1, here's negative 6. Is negative 1 greater or closer to the positives? Well, yes it is. So your answer is true or all real numbers. Negative 1 is greater than negative 6. Alright, these next two, solve and graph. Notice there's two symbols, so we're going to have two answers. Our arrows should be either pointing together, making an and statement, or apart from each other, making an or statement. If you have arrows pointing both to the right or both to the left, you made a mistake. So I'm going to solve this. We can distribute first. If you wanted to divide everything by 5 to just get rid of the 5, that works too. So I'm going to distribute 15p. 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. And then we want p all by itself, so first get rid of adding and subtracting. I'm going to add 10. So those eliminate. I have 15p. On this side, 10 plus 20 is 30. And on this side, a negative 15 and a positive 10, there's more negatives, negative 5. And then last, the opposite of multiplying by 15 is divide by 15. So we have p. 30 divided by 15 is 2, goes in 2 times. Negative 5 divided by 15, we can simplify that by dividing by 5. And that gives us negative 1. 5 divided by 5 is just 1. 15 divided by 5 is 3, or negative 1/3. So we really have two inequalities here. We have this one here with p is less than 2, which is good to graph. And we have this one over here, negative 1/3 is less than or equal to p. Well, we can't graph that. We got to flip these around. Flip your symbol so that we can graph it. So we have 2 and a negative 1/3. If you want to put a 0 in the middle, you can. At 2, we have an open circle, because there's no equal to, pointing to the left. And then at negative 1/3, equal to means we have a closed circle, and it's pointing to the right. So this is an and statement. Our answers are between here and here. Next one, right away we know our arrows are going to be pointing apart on our number line because it has the word or right in it. So let's simply just solve both. First, I'm going to get rid of adding or subtracting, so I'm going to add 6. 6 plus 6 is 12, so that's 22. And then this is really a negative 1x, so the opposite of multiplying there is divide by negative 1. Remember, when you multiply or divide by negative, you have to flip your symbol. So that's a negative 22 now. 22 divided by 1 is still 22, it's just negative. But I can't graph this like this, so I need to rewrite it. So I have x, flip my symbol back the other direction, and negative 22. So there's the first number we're going to graph. The second one we need to solve as well. Get rid of adding or subtracting. We have 2x is greater than or equal to 11, take away 5 gives me 6. And then the opposite of multiplying by 2 is divide by 2. So I have x is greater than or equal to 6 divided by 2, which is 3. So I'm going to put 3 on here and negative 22. This one is a closed circle because it's equal to and pointing to the right. This one's open and pointing to the left. So there's what we have so far. We have a couple questions left. These ones have to do with absolute value. Absolute value is our shower. Anything that goes in the shower comes out clean. So what could I put in the shower to make it come out 15? Well, I could put in the shower 15 and it would come out clean. Or I could put in the shower a negative 15 or a dirty 15 and it would come out clean. Same thing down here. What could I put in for x? Well, x could be 3 or x could be negative 3. So if we look at this next one, what could I put in here to make it come out 9? Well, this whole piece would have to equal 9 or negative 9. So we're going to solve both equations. r minus 7 could be 9, or r minus 7 could be a negative 9. So we just have to solve both. So add 7 on both sides. R is equal to 16. Or if I add 7 here, negative 9 plus 7 is negative 2. So if you want to double check that, plug it back in to see if it works. 16 minus 7 is 9. Well, yes, the absolute value of 9 is 9. If I plugged in a negative 2 minus 7 is negative 9. Absolute value of negative 9 is also 9. So both of our answers work. This next one, our shower is not all by itself, so we need to clean up the outside of our bathroom here in order to write two equations. Because remember, I couldn't write my equations until I knew the absolute value of the shower was by itself. So whatever was in here, didn't matter what I put in there, it had to come out 9. So whatever was here had to be equal to 9 or negative 9. So here I need to get rid of this 2 and the negative 1. Just like equations, we get rid of adding and subtracting first. So I'm going to add 1. So I have 2, absolute value of 6x plus 5 equal to 26. Then the opposite of multiplying by 2 is dividing by 2. So those eliminate. Remember, you can't distribute with absolute value. These are solid straight lines. We have 6x plus 5. And 26 divided by 2 is 13. So now that we have our absolute value by itself, we can write two equations. This whole piece could be equal to positive 13 or negative 13. So we have 6x plus 5 equal to a negative 13, or 6x plus 5 equal to a positive 13. Doesn't matter which one you write first. I'm going to start writing the negative one first so that when we get to graphing these later, the negative numbers are on the left. So we're going to get rid of our adding and subtracting first. These are all negative, same sign, add them up, that's negative 18. And then divide by 6. X equals a negative 3. Or on the other one here, subtract 5. Those eliminate. 13 take away 5 is 8. And then just divide by 6 on both sides. 8 divided by 6 is not going to be a nice number, but I can divide both by 2. So I'd get 4 over 3. Or if you'd like, 1.3 repeating. Whichever answer you would prefer. Oops, too far. Alright, we're done with absolute value equations. Oh, just kidding. We have a couple more. There's a couple that might have no solution. The absolute value, if it's equal to a negative, it's not possible. Because you can't put something in the shower and have it come out negative. You can't put something in the shower and have it come out dirty. It's not possible. It doesn't happen. So when that's the case, there's no solution. But the absolute value needs to be by itself. For example, this one looks like it's no solution because we have absolute value equal to a negative, but there's a 6 in the way. So we need to move that 6 first. I'm going to subtract 6. We have the absolute value of 3x plus 5 equal to a negative 8. Now we have the absolute value equal to a negative number, so this one is no solution. If you were to solve it and try and plug your number or your answer back in, it wouldn't work if you tried to solve it. This one looks good so far, so let's start solving. We have to subtract 4 on both sides. So those eliminate. We have 2 absolute value of m minus 5 equal to a negative 2. And then divide by 2. We have absolute value of m minus 5 equal to negative 1. Again, can't have the absolute value. I can't put anything in here and make it come out negative. It's not possible. So this one is also no solution. And last one like this. Doesn't look good right now, but let's check to see if it'll work. Get rid of your adding and subtracting. I'm going to add 7 first. We have negative 3 absolute value of n plus 2 equal to now a negative 3. And then the opposite of multiplying is divide. So divide by negative 3. We have the absolute value of n plus 2 equal to now a positive 1. So because our absolute value here is equal to a positive number, we have to keep going. So whatever's in here could be equal to a negative 1 or a positive 1 in order to come out clean. So we could have n plus 2 equal to a negative 1 or n plus 2 equal to a positive 1. So I'm going to subtract 2 on both sides. Negative 1 and a negative 2, that makes negative 3. Same thing here. We have n equal to a negative 1. And those are our two answers. If you're not sure if you got it right, plug them back in to see if it solves and it works to become equal. Our next 3 right here are just like we did before, writing 2 absolute value inequalities, and then we have to graph them at the end. So just like before, what could I put in here to get out 6? Well, I could put in a negative 6 or a positive 6. When you write the one with the positive, leave the symbol like it is, but when you write it with the negative one, you have to flip your symbol. So there's nothing to solve here, because there's only just the letter x. So we can just graph this on a number line, negative 6, positive 6, both closed circles because they have the equal to. At 6, we're pointing to the right. At negative 6, we're pointing to the left. Next, what could I put in here to make this come out 11? Well, I could put in a negative 11 or a positive 11 in order for it to come out clean. So I need to write 2 inequalities. 2w minus 1 with a negative 11 or 2w minus 1 with a positive 11. Leave the positive one, the symbol the same, and flip with the negative one. So we're going to solve both of these because I can't graph it yet. Get rid of adding and subtracting first. I'm going to add 1. 2w is greater than a negative 10, and divide by 2. So if w is greater than negative 5. And then the other side, add 1. We have 2w is less than 12. And then divide by 2. We get w is less than 6. So on our number line, we have negative 5, positive 6. Both of these are open circles. There's no equal to. These ones happen to be pointing together at negative 5 to the right and at 6 to the left. Last one like this. We need our absolute value by itself before we can write 2 equations or inequalities. So let's get rid of the outside, adding and subtracting first. So we have 3 absolute value of 5m minus 6 equal to now 8, 9, 10, 11, 21. And then get rid of that by dividing by 3. And we have the absolute value of 5m minus 6 equal to 7. Reminder that this is the one point where you can write your 2 equations or inequalities when the absolute value is by itself, like it is. Oh, but I wrote equals. We have less than or equal to, so make that a less than symbol. So let's write our 2 inequalities. 5m minus 6 with the negative 7, because this could be equal to a negative 7, or 5m minus 6 with a positive 7. Leave the symbol the same for the positive, flip for the negative one, and solve. So adding and subtracting, add 6. Negative 7 plus 6 is a negative 1. Make sure you're pausing the video if you need to, remember. And then divide by 5. So we get m is greater than or equal to negative 1/5. And then same thing over here, add 6. 5m is less than or equal to, well, 6 plus 6 is 12, so one more is 13. And divide by 5. M is less than or equal to, well, 5 goes into 13 2 times, and there's 3 pieces left over, so 2 3/5. If you wanted to plug that in your calculator, that would be 2.6. This would be 0.2. But we just need to graph it. This one's a negative 1/5, and this one is positive 2 3/5. Both closed circles because of the equal to underneath. And at 2 3/5 pointing to the left, at negative 1/5 pointing to the right. So our last page here is multiple choice, just to get you prepared to see what some of the questions might look like. This one says, which inequality corresponds to the sentence, 5 times the difference of x and 8 is less than or equal to 20? Write it exactly like you're seeing it. 5 times, okay, 5 times the difference of, okay, so it's 5 times this whole thing, the difference of x and 8. So difference means subtract, so x and 8. So right away, we can eliminate these two because we do have 5 times x minus 8, but it's 5 times this whole thing, not just 5 times x minus 8. That's what it would say if you wanted these ones, 5 times x minus 8. We want this whole piece. Then it says, is less than or equal to, so write your less than or equal to symbol, like an L for less than, 20. So this one's greater than or equal to, this one's just less than. This is the symbol we're looking for, which must be 8. I'm going to go over to the right. Which compound inequality is represented by the graph? So I can see right away that this is an or statement. We have one side or the other side. So I know it can't be this and. That's the only one that says the word and. However, these ones are all written together, which implies an and statement. If you're not sure, we can leave those for now, and we can look at our equations here. So they used x to represent our answers. So here our answers are less than or greater than 0. Well, 1 and 2 are greater than. This arrow helps make the greater than symbol. X is greater than 0. Over here, we have x is something at negative 2. These numbers are less than, like an L and like the symbol there, or equal to negative 2 because it's a filled in or closed circle. So our answers are this or this. So right away, you can see that this part down here has the equal to with 0. We don't want the equal to with 0. It has to be an open circle, so that one's out. This one you could split up into 2, and same thing. With the 0, there's no equal to, so that one's out. This one does have the equal to with 0, which, oops, I made one mistake. We don't want the equal to, so this one could be a possibility. This one is definitely not. This one looks good. We have exactly matching. This one, you guys, doesn't even match the same arrows though. X is less than 0. Well, we don't want less than, we want greater than. So we have narrowed it down to just B. And both equations here match perfectly. Alright, next it says which lines, so it could be more than one, are perpendicular to this line. Well, perpendicular means the slopes are opposite, meaning one's positive and one's negative. and reciprocals. And reciprocal, R-E-C-I-P, rocal, means our fraction is flipped. So if this one is positive 1/2, our new slope has to be negative. Instead of 1/2, it would have to be 2/1, or just -2 if we don't write it as a fraction. So they have to be solved for y in order to determine our slope. This one is solved for y. It says y equals, so is our slope -2? Is it perpendicular to the one they gave us? No, it's a +2, so we can eliminate that choice. If we go right down below, this one says y equals -1/2. We don't want -1/2, we want -2, so that one's out. If I go over here, this one says y equals -2x. Oh, that one's going to be perpendicular. We only look at slopes for parallel and perpendicular lines, so that's a good answer choice. Over here, this one's not solved for y, so I would have to move this 2x over to the other side. And we would have y equals -2x minus 1. Yep, we want a -2, so this would be a good choice as well. So we have two good answers that would be perpendicular to this line. This one has a slope of -1/2. We don't want that. We want -2 for our slope in order to be perpendicular. And then this next one we need to solve for y as well. We could subtract 2x. And we'd have -y equal to -2x plus 6. But then we'd have to divide by -1. And we'd have y equals 2x minus 6. It's not a -2, it's a positive, so it can't be that choice. So our two middle options were both answers. Next, it says starfish can have a diameter as small as 1.3 centimeters or as large as 90 centimeters. Which inequality represents the possible diameters of a starfish? Now this word in the middle is a little misleading because, for example, if I said my shoe size was between an 8 and a 10, well, it would be somewhere in between, right? It wouldn't be an 11 out here. So what they're telling us is that the size of our starfish is between, oops, I didn't mean to put arrows on there. The size of our starfish is between 1.3 and 90. It can't be greater and it can't be less. So this is really what kind of statement? This is really an and statement. But let's think about that. As small as 1.3, so it could be equal to 1.3, or as large as 90, could be equal to 90. So we could have our answers. I'm going to use the letter D for our answers for the diameter. At 90, we could have answers that are less than or equal to 90. And we could have answers that are greater than or equal to 1.3. So the ones that don't even have an equal to, like this one doesn't have an equal to, so we can cross that out, we can cross that out. So it's down to these three answer choices. So let's see if this first one matches. D is less than or equal to 1.3. Well, no. We wanted greater than or equal to 1.3, so that one's already out. So it's got to be one of these two. And they have our answers written together, so we can write them together as well. We always put the least number on the left and the greatest number on the right, which we have here already. We have D is less than or equal to 90. And in order to flip these or put them together, we're going to flip this around. This would be D, flip your symbol, and 1.3. So if we match these up, we would have this one big inequality, which matches with answer choice C. Alright, I know that was a lot of information. The front side of your homework is just simply solving inequalities. The back side is absolute value equations and inequalities. Don't forget to graph your solution on a number line if you need.